Even though there's not very many options of electric vans that you can buy, people haven't waited for electric vans to come to them, as there's many instances of van lifers building their own. So then the question is why? Why go electric? Why go through the trouble of such a complex and expensive conversion? Surely it's not just the eco-friendliness aspect of it, right? As it turns out, there's some actual compelling utility to an electric-based camper van. As the wave of electric pickup trucks passes, the next chunk of vehicles getting the EV treatment is vans. And you already see it with the likes of the Volkswagen ID Buzz, the Ford e-Transit, the Mercedes e-Sprinter is just around the corner, and you have new EV startups like Canoe offering some interesting options. Even Rivian has an adventure van in the works. For one thing, you don't need to go and install a completely separate electrical system. Since an EV is basically a giant battery bank on wheels, you just pull all the power you need right from the van itself. And if you're concerned about burning up battery capacity to power all your gear, you can still deploy solar panels on the roof, except it's just wired directly into charging the van's main battery rather than a separate power bank. In fact, if you set up shop for a few days and keep power draw to a minimum, you'll actually be adding range back into your van. Imagine driving out into the woods to camp for a few days and leaving with a full charge. You can keep the setup to just a few solar panels on the roof, or you can expand it a bit with a few extra deployable solar panels you can set up on the ground if you really want to go nuts with the solar charging and space allows. In fact, you're not just limited to solar panels. You can consider some wind turbines set up on the roof of your van when you're in some windy spots, some hydroelectric generators if you're set up next to a fast-moving water source, or my personal favorite, thermoelectric generators. Some people, like what I plan to do with my camper van build, is install a mini wood stove inside the van for heating during winter. If you pair that up with a thermoelectric generator, you can also use that heat generated to charge the van. And the heat isn't used in the process, it's still used to heat up the living space, but it gets a secondary use as helping even out or even charge up a little bit your van's battery. Depending on how you leverage all these renewable charging options, you may never actually have to plug in to charge, unless you're doing a lot of driving around. And if you do have to plug in to charge, a common misconception with non-EV folk is that electric vehicles take forever to charge. I don't know why this myth still persists, but it does, because it's just straight up not true at all. Take for instance my Tesla Model 3, which is my current adventure vehicle, which has a rated range of 438 kilometers. From about 10% battery remaining all the way up to 100% on a happy day takes only 20 minutes. And on a bad day, when everything's kind of working against me, like in the middle of winter and I'm sharing a stall with another person and the charger over from me, it takes 40 minutes. Now, obviously, a van is bigger, heavier, it's going to have a larger battery pack to make up for it, and the max charging speed of your van is definitely a big consideration if you're deciding to build an EV-based van platform. The couple options that are currently available for off-the-shelf electric vans don't offer much in the way of fast charging, but for reference, the de facto standard for fast charging is 250 kilowatts to 350 kilowatts on some of the newer chargers. A van with a 100 kilowatt hour battery pack, which is twice the size of my Model 3's battery pack, if your van is capable of accepting those charging speeds, it would be able to charge from completely empty to completely full in 20 to 30 minutes, respectively, depending on which of those two charges you're at. Now, in reality, it's probably going to take a little bit longer, but that's the benefit to living in your van. You can just chill out and wait for a few minutes. In the extremely rare chance that you don't have access to a fast charger, EVs can still charge from a standard wall outlet. It's not fast, but it can be done. And most campsites have RV sites that have a specialized RV electrical hookup that you can also plug into to charge. As an EV owner, let me tell you, you'll probably never need to use any of these slower charging options. Fast chargers are everywhere on major travel routes. Seriously, probably a lot more than you might think. And the cost of charging is pretty low too. It's not as low as it used to be, but still cheaper compared to gas. And like I said, if you subsist entirely off of solar and renewables, you don't have a charging cost. Maintenance is on a whole other level too. No oil changes, no filter changes, no spark plugs, no hoses, no belts. You get the picture. Far less moving parts means less chance of anything breaking. For most people, the biggest concern I see is the battery pack itself being the point of failure. And contrary to what some people might tell you, they actually last a really long time. At minimum, it's comparable in cost of replacement and lifespan to a gasoline engine. For instance, with Teslas, their battery packs are designed to last over 10 years, or over 150,000 miles. And real-life data shows that they're lasting over twice that, with many people reporting over 300,000 miles on a single battery pack, and some people even registering over 400,000 miles on a single battery pack. And that's not even getting into the newer generation of EVs that are using lithium iron phosphate batteries like what my Model 3 has, and it's one of the first to do so. And these LFP batteries are a different type of chemistry that trades capacity. They only have about half as much as a standard EV battery, but they have 2 to 3 times the lifespan. And if you do the math, that means that my Tesla Model 3, it will last for potentially 1,000,000 miles on one battery pack. And LFP-based EVs haven't been around for more than a couple years, so there hasn't been a chance for any EVs to even come close to accumulating that many miles. And yes, battery degradation is a thing. Your batteries will lose capacity year over year as they deteriorate, but even that is probably nowhere close to being as bad as what people have told you. According to the data, every year a Tesla battery pack loses, are you ready for this? 1 to 2% capacity per year. That's it. So don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to say that EVs are perfect. An argument can certainly be made about price, vehicle weight, etc. But there's just a crap ton of false information out there that I wanted to clear up and explain why I personally am building an EV-based camper van. And if you want to see all the EV adventures and camping trips that I get up to, click the card.